Today, I would like to talk about matter, shape, information and copyright. As soon as the humanity step into digital era, there are strange things started to happen with people who are not familiar with information technologies closely. I would like to discuss some of such strange things and the comprehension of the real world by people and me personally. I don't want to intentionally change somebody's point of view to the reality, but I'm pretty sure that it can happen, and somebody can change their point of view, completely or partially. But it's not my goal. This video could be spread without my permission, without any change. Because otherwise I would not publish it. So, how does the world look like in the modern science model? I make the stress on the word modern, because possible in a couple decades, or hundreds years the contemporary science model of the world might be naive, or even completely wrong. I admit it. Thus, according to modern science, we register the reality with our sensory organs' three physical dimensions, and by the same organs, we detect the change of forms, and call it the flow of time. Possibly some physicists will watch this and it might happen that they are familiar with more advanced physical theories, like string theory etc., which operates with bigger number of dimensions, but I can say in advance that all these theories are as incorrect as my discourse, which I do just for illustration. I will take atoms, elementary particles, a shape, which I will describe with aid of Euclidean geometry, and information as a negative entropy, and couple of other things. After I'll speculate with these notions, trying to launch the chain of chemical reactions in your brain, which could eventually create some positive or negative emotions. A shape. We have intuitive idea about shape from our childhood, but we can't imagine to ourselves how fundamental this concept is. What is the shape? Even if we will consider a shape as a form of geometrical descriptions, a shape is something that could be described with dots, lines and surfaces. All these geometric objects can be written in math form, as in numbers, or some type of information. Thus any geometric shape could be described as a set of bits or bytes. I should admit that one and the same shape could be represented by infinite number of variants of bit combinations, but there always exists the shortest bit sequence. Any decrease in bit's number, or flipping of any bit, will lead to the shape change. Let's try to understand now, can a shape be an object? What is an object? From programmer's point of view, yes, any piece of information we can call an object. In this case it's a mathematical object. Could be some shape a physical object? No, a shape is not a physical object, because for physical object their shape and matter form it. So, a physical object is a piece of some matter having some geometrical shape. Not to be scholastic, consider that the matter consists of discrete atoms, which we can count and put to some positions, defining by that the shape of physical object. What is this whole speech about? Nowadays in digital age people not always distinguish math and physical objects, and this misunderstanding leads to serious problems in law's creation. For instance, in the area of copyright intellectual property for digital arts creations. I mean, there are people trying to protect some sequence of bytes which they invented, they try to protect some shapes which they seems invented, and they try to prevent other people to use these shapes using existing awkward laws. I have some thought about it. Any shape represented as sequence of bits is undoubtedly a math object, which as I mentioned before, might be copied multiple times without single error, and could be identically recreated on any of physical carrier or storage. But one can create an infinite number of sequences describing one and the same shape, and as a consequence, the protection of geometric shape, let's say a digital sculpture, has absolutely no meaning if it could be represented absolutely different bit sequence created by other artists. Let's think about it again. One and the same shape, but different bit sequences. What does law protects? A shape or a bit sequence? Next, let's say I 3D printed some physical object, I gave some shape to a piece of material, and by doing this I created some unique physical object, the shape of which is asymptotically described by mathematical object I used. I can make as many tries as I want to materialize the math object, and every time I'll get a unique physical object, which is different from others and even different in the shape, form, ideal, and original math object. Where is this degree of the difference when we can consider the shape of physical object identical to original mathematical object? My answer, there is no such degree. We just can not compare physical objects and mathematical objects. It's as ridiculous as compare kilometers and kilograms. People's misunderstanding of this fact leads to big problems in lawmaking. For instance, a program code created once might be copied multiple times, but as well known, this does not create any material value. Nevertheless, Americans think that it's okay to sell licenses for a copy of software. Meanwhile, the difference between two copies of the same software is in a license key. It means, buying Windows you pay hundreds of dollars for a 20 bytes license key. It's clear that exists some value associated with the development of the first copy of the code, which will be multiplied afterwards, and there is some meaning to talk about the price for this first copy, but while the copy process is started, the price of each single copy tends dramatically to zero, and so drop faster than one divide by the number of copies, as soon as the summation should give us the approach of the first original code copy. But if the price for each copy is a constant and does not drop, we create an inflation. Fortunately, the number of sold licenses is finite, because it's limited by the number of buyers. I might be strongly mistaken, but such situation worry me a little bit. Actually, it's a legal way to rob and redistribute money among people. Simply selling licenses for a single software copies one might have enormous income dodging from taxes at the same time, like well-known Uncle Billy from some company did. Let's return to our physical objects, and to the question of transferring of math shape to real physical objects. As you already got my idea, the reselling of math objects is an evil, and it should be persecuted if possible. But it's almost impossible to prevent illegal copying. I mean that there are ways to do this, but lovers does not like that. I mean piracy. In fact, any copy of math object costs zero or about zero, but pirates, spreading these copies in physical carriers, deliver goods for other people, creating the value. Of course, authors and creators do not receive money for this process, but they could get the fame and followers. Isn't it the better than money award? Everyone should choose what he or she deserve. What concern of physical copy made from math object? I think that in this case, the copyman paid for every atom which he or she used for creating the physical copy, and I consider that pirate didn't steal anything from the creator of math object. Even if a pirate creates physical copies of math object for sale, what should creators of math objects do in such situation? Who can withstand of the spreading of his math objects to the physical world? In my opinion, creators cannot withstand, and they shouldn't do this. If any math object get into hands of copyman, somehow it means that the author did it himself, even if his math object was stolen. It means just that the author did not apply necessary efforts to protect his objects from copying of stealing, and he or she shouldn't blame copyman. Otherwise we are falling into demagogy, trying to protect creators of math objects, but in reality the math objects are not a good due to the infinitely small self-cost of its copy. We speed up an inflation, create useless lawsuits, slow down the progress by preventing copying process. That's why I wish sincerely that all ribosomes of all nuclei of all that people who prohibit copying of math objects stop to replicating information from their RNA molecules and stop to produce proteins inside their cells, and then all that people fell out from the process of life copying and would disappear once and a while. Thanks for your attention. Good luck.